Okay, well, good afternoon, everyone. And if you're in a different time zone, good morning, perhaps. I'm Yin Kwan. I'm here with Brett Cohen, who I previously worked with at Deloitte. I'm here today to moderate and hopefully have an insightful conversation with Brett. Brett, tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in the realm of data analytics, business intelligence.
All right, thanks, Ian Kwan. Good to see you. Welcome, everyone. I have been in the business intelligence data analytics space for the past 15 years or so. Uh, I've started out my career in more of the analytics side of things, but really started to understand the full realm of business analytics and how to add value and see how to improve performance and really build that data culture within an organization. And I've worked in both consulting organizations, working with in client service, as well as working in more traditional corporate environments and looking to see the, the things that have worked and helping organizations really amplify those things that have worked and kind of change their habits from things that may not have worked, and really build that culture around data analytics and using data and insights to make better, faster business decisions to ultimately add value to the organization.
Wonderful. In the organizations that you've worked in, how do you foster a data-driven culture, in your opinion?
Well, a data-driven culture really comes both ways, both top down and bottom up, right? You need to have the folks on the
Hmm.
ground, the individuals who are really going to be digging into the data, working with it every day, as well as the folks, the leadership, the executive team, buying into that data and buying into the results that the team is producing.
Hmm.
And And there are really three components that go into this, right? You have people, right? You have the
Hmm.
folks who are actually doing the work. You need the talent there to take the data and generate insights and generate recommendations. You need the technology, right? The tools to explain, the tools to show uh, the results, whether it's manipulating the data with a tool, with a data science tool like R, Python, SQL, whatever it is, an ETL tool, a business intelligence tool like Tableau or Power BI to really tell that story or show that story. Um, but really thinking about the technology that you need to invest in to really extract those insights from the data that you may be collecting. And perhaps, and and companies are very good at investing in those things because those are more tangible things. People, right? You can hire more people, you can hire better talent. Technology, you could always buy whatever the latest technology is or invest in the latest technology. But the third thing is really the process or the culture, right?
Hmm.
Bringing all those pieces together, getting that buy-in, getting folks, if you have an organization where maybe a lot of folks have been there and used to the way things have been going on for the last 20 years, and you have some new folks in there looking to say, hey, I've seen this done better this way. It's really kind of having those sorts of conversations and having that culture that enables you to really make that business transformation, um, and really focus on what the value add is, right? And sometimes when thinking about value, there are there again are three things that people tend to think about, and that helps also with the data driven culture, right? People think about how can we make more money or increase whatever the good KPIs are, or how could we reduce whatever the bad KPIs are, save costs, reduce overhead, things like that. But the third piece to
Hmm.
really talk about with value is really going back to that process. If we're able to automate a process using data that takes, let's say, people 10 or or let's say 10 days to do and it can be done in a few hours,
Hmm.
right? Well, that frees up almost 2 weeks of man hours that can then be used toward another more impactful data project, or looking at more insightful data, or making better, quicker decisions with different things that they would otherwise be doing these sorts of more manual processes. So looking at value and quantifying value, not only in the sense of data or of increasing revenue or increasing good KPI or decreasing bad KPI, but also improving business processes, that adds value to the overall organization. And not only that, it also leads to greater satisfaction of the employees who are building those sorts of processes, right? So they're no longer stuck doing that same routine work every 2 weeks or every month, pulling together
Mm,
certain monthly reports, or uh, every quarter working on a quarterly business review with the same sort of data, because
mhm.
they know that they need to do this. If you can cut that time out, well, it it frees them up to also further their careers, and ensuring that those folks know the impact that they're having on the entire organization, and making sure that people are understanding what you're bringing together, really helps generate that overall organizational buy-in.
Good, good, very good. Yeah, so it sounds like with your deep industry experience, with your experience in and business intelligence background, from what you've seen, what are some best practices to help organizations make better business decisions and more faster, make better and faster business decisions?
Well, one thing is you don't always have to be right, right?
Okay,
Um, it, it's the direction that counts. If you're building a bridge, well, yeah, you need to be right. You need to make sure that you're not going to do something, because that's going to kill people if your bridge collapses or something like that. But if
sure.
you're making a decision like, do I go this way or do I go this way? Do I throw more money at this or do I pull money away from here?
Mm,
Um, if you can build a model that is 80 to 90% accurate, but gives you the enough information to make your business decision to say, hey, I need to invest here, and then you can refine later on in the process, well, that can be a lot easier and a lot faster to generate than building a perfect model that might be 98% accurate and say, yeah, now we need to go this way, because it means more data needs to be collected, more analyst hours need to go into building that model, more compute power needs to go into running that model.
mhm,
And and from what I've found, being directionally right and making quick decisions, and also gives you the ability to fail fast, seems to be better for the organization, so that they can then say, hey, this is working, let's throw more money, or and we can always refine at a later point.
okay, yeah.
Another best practice is showing impact, kind of going back to what I was saying earlier, focusing on what the impact of each decision is. If somebody is asking for a metric, right? Making sure that metric is insightful to the question that they are trying to answer, right? A question that one organization I worked with was Marriott, and a question I kept getting quite often at Marriott was, how much time do people spend on the Marriott website? And what I would really want to know is, because I can make an argument that more time spent is good or less time spent is good, and more time spent is bad, less time spent is bad. I can make all four of those arguments and they could all be valid arguments. But really, what are you trying to understand? Are you trying to understand how people are engaging with the website? Are you trying to understand how people are converting, such as, right, how they're booking their hotels, right? So, really going down to what that underlying business decision that they're trying to make, and providing only the data that's needed to help them make those decisions. If you're a site like Facebook or YouTube, where time spent on the site can be a proxy for engagement, because that means you're
Mhm.
consuming more content, consuming more advertising, well, then yes, that's a good metric to have, and you can use that to build your model around that, or to tell the story around engagement, or and how people are interacting with the site. Um, and going back to what I was saying earlier, putting this data in people's hands to tell the story visually, right? You want to build dashboards, make things self-service, uh, building things like real-time tracking, automating processes so people can pull up information when they get to the office and leave it on in the background and say, hey, how's my business doing throughout the day? Can help the organization be more proactive about addressing problems, be more proactive about um, fixing things that may not be working right.
Mm,
And showing things in a way that's easy to understand for the general audience, uh, not just the analysts, is definitely something that needs to be done, because those are the ultimate end consumers, the stakeholders, the business decision makers in the organization.
wonderful, wonderful. And for organizations that are trying to reach data maturity and they're not there yet, how do you achieve maturity in data analytics in your opinion? What do you invest in,
Well,
Yeah.
one thing I would say is kind of going back to what I was briefly alluding to in the previous response, was using something like design thinking, strategic questions, really asking the stakeholders, what business decision are you trying to make? And then crafting the analytics and the data strategy and the data analytics around those sorts of strategic questions they're trying to answer, the business problems they're trying to solve, as opposed to thinking of analytics as just a collection of metrics. Think of it more as, here's a story we can tell to solve a business problem. And and when you approach an analytics project, when you bring that into the culture, it helps people really get down to the insights and impact. I was in a conversation with someone recently, and there were three things that they used to say during an analytics project. What, so what, now what, right? So you can look at data and you can say, okay, here's what's going on, but so what? Why is it important? Now what? What are we going to do about it? Right? So what are those? And going from what to so what and now what, that's really where the impact is, right? You can always look
Hmm.
and see how things have done historically, or build a model and say, here's how we think things are going to be in the future. But analytics without change is just data. It's just a bunch of numbers. It's but just a bunch of information. And sometimes the decision is, let's keep the status quo. Let's keep what's going on. But that's still a decision that needs to be made, um, because sometimes we're on the right track. Things are going well. And the best thing to do is just keep riding that wave. But that needs to be a decision that needs to be made, not just something that's kind of defaulted to.
Wonderful. Brett, this last question is, for all the younger data practitioners on this call, what should young data practitioners earlier in their career focus on to really build a set of skills and to build a long career in the industry, for anyone who's entry level or just relatively
Yeah.
junior, so to speak.
Well, one thing I would say is having organizations find like communities of practice, or foster communities of practice where people can really team up with others who either are skilled in the same areas or skilled in similar areas, where one person can teach someone coding, where another person could teach someone visualization, where another person could teach someone ETL, and other people can teach um, data security or whatever it may be, right? Having those sorts of knowledge shares, having those sorts of cross-functional teams or cross-functional areas is always something that I've valued and how I've learned throughout my career. Uh, Another way is to find mentors, right? Either within your organization or within the industry, or going to industry events and looking up for people who have done this before, and picking their brains, and I'm giving my opinions of how things that I've seen have worked in the past, but you can ask 10 different people and you can get 10 different answers, and try and really soak in what everybody has to say. Uh, and it doesn't hurt. It could be a cup of coffee. I mean, obviously now with COVID, or a Zoom meeting right now, right? With COVID and everything, it's a little bit tougher to see people in person, but as things open up, you can go back out and there'll be more industry events and listen to webinars and things like that. But number one has to be, and this is what I look for when I'm hiring people to my teams, is that willingness to learn, that drive. If I see that drive, I'll take that over someone that I can say, okay, has these great skills. You need to have a bare minimum in terms of the skill set for a given level, but that drive to learn, that drive to further your career, and that willingness to be coached, and is something that I look for. But for an analytics person, or for someone looking to grow their career in the analytics field, I would say it's not just limited to analytics, right? Some folks may be more interested in going into certain areas, say healthcare analytics or financial analytics, which is all well and good. But one thing I would always stress is focusing on some of those soft skills, presentation, communication, right? You get a lot of data scientists and analysts who may not be the best at writing a non-technical email to a business leader where they need to explain their findings or explain their model, where you really don't need to go into the nitty-gritty of the model. You just need to go into the straightforward results. So focus on not only growing those technical skills, but also growing the soft skills. And finally, I would say is raise your hand as much as possible. Try and learn as many new things, but also challenge yourself is the best way to learn, right? Being thrown into the deep end and working with a technology you haven't worked with before, or building a different type of model that you haven't built before, really forces you to think differently and come up with creative solutions and reach out to folks who you may not have reached out to before, and learn different ways how you can achieve a set goal or a set desired outcome. So I would say that's really where, and again, think about the value that you're adding to the organization, to the team, even if it isn't, say, hey, we're bringing in this model, help bring $5 million more revenue to the group or to the business line, right? If you're doing something that automates a process, well, think about how long it took you to do that process. Say it took you 2 days to do that process every month. Well, 2 days every month is 24 days over the course of the year. And now you built this process and you basically saved a month worth of your working hours, which you can then quantify in terms of dollar or man hour dollars, that you can say to the company, say, hey, I saved the organization this much money by automating this process. And because I automated this process, I have this many more days or this many more hours to then focus on these areas that are helping the company do this, or helping achieve this goal or achieve that goal. So think of everything as a way of how you're making that impact and how you can quantify that impact to really communicate that out to the rest of the organization.
Wonderful, wonderful. That was a great answer. Thank you so much, Brett. We have a minute left. If there's any audience questions, we'd be happy to answer right now. But this was great. Thank you so much for your time, Brett. Yeah. Any questions from the audience?
And if you guys want to reach out, you could always find myself or Ying Kwan on LinkedIn, or reach out to either of us through there. So happy to connect with anybody after this and continue this sort of conversation. And yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Have a great afternoon. If you're on the West Coast, have a great mid-afternoon. So thank you.